right, how's everybody? Welcome today. I'm Mike Jeffers, Chicago Jazz Magazine, Chicago Music Revealed, episode 22. As I always say, we have done over 150 episodes, but this is episode 22 of Chicago Music Revealed, which we stream live here on Facebook, and then, of course, it gets pushed out onto YouTube, out onto IGTV, out onto ChicagoMusicRevealed.com, and the podcast Chicago Jazz Audio Experience. So you can get it everywhere, but this is the only place you can see it live right now. By the way, this is going to be one heck of a show because I am, as I always preface all of my shows, I am in charge of all the technical stuff here. So I am going to bring people in and out. I'm going to play the videos. I'm going to play the music. I'm going to drop the graphics. And of course, as I drop the graphics and as things crash, it's completely my fault, which is fantastic, right? So bear with me, but I know that we're getting a lot of great feedback. Anybody watching this show today, we're in for a treat. We're going to have 3 guests. We're going to have the Lost Melody, an incredible trio. They've got a new recording coming out May 1st, so we're going to talk about that. They have been together for 20 years, and I've got them all on Skype, and this is the first time I'm going to have 3 people on Skype with me, and we're going to have I'm going to play some video here, and we're going to lead into the trio so you get a little sample of what they do, and then we're going to bring everybody on. So let's hope and pray that all of my independence from my drumming years stick together here so I can do all of this at once. But I think this is going to be a great show. I really appreciate everybody watching all the time. Of course, leave us a comment. Hit us up if you enjoy what you're watching. Share this out. As I always say, tell your neighbors, tell your family, call the grandkids. Chicago Music Revealed. We're here every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. We've got a killer lineup for the rest of the week, which I will preview after we finish up with the Lost Melody. So stand by. I'm going to bring those guys on. This is going to be a lot of fun, but let me play a little theme song, a little sample of what the group sounds like and looks like, because I've heard from a lot of people in the feedback, and we're having great discussions with a lot of different musicians every single day, which is incredible. But sometimes, it helps to get a little sample of what the group sounds like and what they look like, which is what we're going to be able to do right now. So let's try this out, and then we're going to bring in the guys, and we're going to have a good discussion. So let's see if I can do all of this. And here we go. The Lost Melody.
Right.
All right, let's bring everybody in and see what I do. That Lost Melody. Let's bring everybody in and we'll see if I can do this. We have everybody coming on here. I think I did it, guys. All right. We've got Jamie Owsley on bass, Joe Davidin on piano, and Austin McMahon on drums. And guys, thanks for jumping on. Thanks for the technical problems we had to begin with, but it's a pleasure to have you guys on. And as I said before we came on live, it's actually a very rare occurrence that there's a jazz trio that's been around for 20 years playing together, still talking to each other, number one, but also playing together, creating and coming out with a new recording. So who wants to take off with the first one? When did you guys first get together and how did you guys meet?
I'll do it. This is Joe.
Yeah,
Hey,
Joe.
Mike. Thanks for
That's a
having
Joe.
us. Appreciate you. Yeah, and the reason I wanted to take this is because I found an old picture of us from way back in the day. I'll see. We're really testing our technology skills here. If I have a camera and show you guys, let me see if I can do this. Nope. Well, let me see. Can you guys see that photo? That's Jamie, holding the bass all the way over on one side, or whatever side that's on. I don't know. But this is the original band that we played together in.
Wow.
In 2003 at the University of Miami. That's where we met. And well, we met probably earlier than that, maybe closer to 99 or 2000. Just in we were all getting our jazz degrees in in performance, and met there and started playing in different ensembles. And but that was the main one, the concert jazz band we started playing together in, and then the rest is history from there.
So you guys all went to school in Miami together, then University of Miami. That's a killer school, obviously. There's a handful of the top, just for the people that are watching this that aren't familiar. There's a handful of the top, jazz schools in the world. At least 20 years ago. Now there's probably even more. But I mean, back then you had Berkeley, you had Miami, University of Indiana, North Texas. I mean, those were like the 4 or 5. There's a couple other ones, but I mean, William Patterson, obviously. But I mean, there's some that just everybody gravitated to. So for you guys to be all together in Miami at the same time, there's a lot of killer players that came out of Miami, especially around that time. How long did you guys stay down there together, just through college, and then you guys split off and then you get back together for the trio stuff? Or, I mean, I'm assuming you're all over the country, or are you guys still down in Miami together?
We're 3 different places. I live in New York City now. Jamie's still in Miami, and Austin is outside of Boston. And yeah, we always consider my senior recital sort of first gig, our first paid gig, but our first real performance for the public together as a trio. And that was in 2003. So, and then after that, I moved back to Vermont, where I originally grew up. And I believe, Austin, you stayed down there in Miami, right, for a couple of years anyway. But we just found ways to tour.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, why don't you take that? So you stayed down there, and then you headed off in another direction as well. But Jamie's still down there. If I got that right? You're still down in Miami, and you're down in that whole.
That's
city.
Right. I had a bunch of gigs lined up, so I just stuck around.
So let's talk a little bit about how, as a trio, you guys are performing together, and you put this new recording out, New Songs for Old Souls. Now, I told you before we came on, I thought I love on the SoundCloud, kind of the brief description on SoundCloud. You guys used to perform under Joe's name or Jamie's name or Austin's name, but then you decided to put this group together and actually call it a trio, the Lost Melody. But for 20 years, but I love what you have on the SoundCloud, Trio of Equals, which, that's something that I think makes a trio playing really cohesive, and you're not able to do that with a lot of any other different group. I mean, to just have 3 guys being able to play off of each other and interact off of each other, even if you added a saxophonist in, it's just not the same as just the bass, drums, piano doing that. When did you come up with the concept of Trio of Equals, and how did you come up with the name The Lost Melody? Because that's an interesting name to begin with.
I can talk about the. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay.
No. It's hard.
Well, another really important growing experience we had is we all studied with the instructor at University of Miami, the jazz piano professor, Vince Maggio. And I'm sure our mutual friend Stacy Michaels knows him and got to work with him. He was kind of notorious. He still is. And he's actually from Chicago. So maybe some of our roots actually come from our musical grandfather there from Chicago. And he always talked about, in a trio, you can't be 33% of the music. And in a duo, you can't be more than 50%. And, we've just really worked on that, and also the groups that we really like, which are very influential, I would say Bill Evans Trio, Keith Jarrett, of course. And, these groups, the individuals are all great, but it's the unit when they play together that's just really magical. And to me, that's what I love about this group, and I play differently when I'm in this group. It's really special. Mm-hmm. And there have been a tour or a concert where one of us couldn't make it and we had someone else, and they were great, but it's just a totally different thing. Mm-hmm. So it's always been to us that this is a unit. And I'll let maybe Austin could talk about our name change.
Sure. Well, yeah, so at a certain point, we decided that the way we were playing together collectively with kind of equal parts needed to be a part of the actual kind of philosophy of the group as a whole. And we went to, I guess we were all getting a little frustrated with, Jamie booked a few gigs in Miami, and we went down there, and it was like James Lee Trio. We feel like we were working sort of a branding, like getting more known as the Jamie Owsley Trio in the Miami area. And then Joe, if we were playing in Nashville where Joe lived for a time, it would be the Joe Davidian Trio. And then if the guys came to Boston, it was Austin McMahon Trio. And I was feeling like, guys, we're not going to be able to get any momentum as a group if we're just playing in these three different places under three different names. It's kind of, we're not really unified. And, I think that we all discussed maybe just changing the name so that we're all equally booking in those different places, but booking one group, booking one, and not just a group, but booking our trio concept and our sound and our philosophy, and then we could make it more unified. And melody has been an emphasis for us, for all three of us, as in the terms of how we write music, in the terms of the music that we gravitate towards, and the terms of how we even improvise together. I think as a drummer myself, I improvise in a melodic way most of the time. Of course, not 100% of the time, but that approach of melodicism, we just decided that melody has to be in the title of the group, in the name of the group rather. And also we were sort of lamenting that melody is somewhat lost in some modern jazz, not all modern jazz. And, obviously there's various different levels and interpretation of what melody is. Angular melodies are still melodies, but we had a certain kind of approach to what that is to us. And so we wanted to say, we're kind of maybe presenting a lost melody or a collection of lost melodies with our music that people can then latch onto and kind of reconnect with that aspect as the centerpiece of a song.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also the thing that I thought about, because the three of you are treating it as three equals, right? In the trio, that lost melody could mean the interaction between, the soloist and the drums, or the soloist and the bass, or the bass and the drums, because when I'm listening to that first track that we just played, the sample video, you could hear, that's the reason why I love the Bill Evans Trio, or even Brad Meldau, now that he's been with the same trio for a very long time, that interaction stuff that you don't get when you're just playing with a group not for 20 years. You know what I mean? It's hard to develop that interactive stuff. So talk a little bit about the concept of this recording now, New Songs for Old Souls. First, let's just talk about it. What's the name? The New Songs for Old Souls. What's the thought process behind the name? Joe, why don't you take this one?
Sure. I guess, this is the first album we've recorded that's all original music. We all wanted to contribute pieces that really featured melody. So they're new songs in that they're pretty brand spanking new originals. And I guess the part that, is for Old Souls is that it does have the emphasis on melody, which was such a hallmark of great tunes from the Tin Pan Alley era, from theater and Broadway and from movie musicals and things like that. And that's what we loved so much about jazz standards, and sort of what helped form our trio sound were those songs. So we're like, you know what, let's write a bunch of songs that are in that vein. Of course, they're all going to have our own personal touches on them, but they're melody first. So in that way, it's kind of for old souls, and I think in a way we all feel like we share that as a trio, that we have this just love for beautiful melodies first and foremost.
So, I'm with you, because I think that that's almost a lost art on some of the new music that's coming out, regardless of whether it's jazz or not. I mean, you can go into all the different genres. But specifically with jazz, I think sometimes things get so technical. Things want to just, everybody wants to get so technical with things and take things to, chops and let's play it in all these different time signatures and play incredible lines. And the melody's 32 bars long now. It's not, I mean, I'm a big believer, and that's why the jazz standards are still around, is because it's solid melody that goes along with great harmony, but the solid melody is the key. And that also gives you the ability to get more creative, I think, as an improviser, when you have something to work off of, Jamie, talk a little bit about that aspect of it, because, when you listen to some of the great bass players, obviously they're playing a melody when they're playing a solo. I mean, they're soloing around the melody. And as a bass player, that's got to be something that you're able to lock onto and really expand out on your instrument, even more than maybe a piano, because a piano, you can assume you can do that because of the chord structures and because of what's happening. But I always feel like drums and bass, if the melody's not a real strong, foundation, maybe you as the bass player who's technical and you understand it, but I mean, as an audience member listening, you need that melody in your head to kind of follow what's going on. And then as you expand as a bass player, it takes the audience on more of a story, right? It takes them more on a trip. I mean, what are your thoughts about that melody standpoint when it comes to improvisation?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I just have to say, first of all, what turns me on is the melody. So I'm always been attracted to the melodic players, Miles Davis, Sonny Rollins, and in the bass world, Charlie Hayden. These are just super melodic players. And I don't know, I find I have a limited attention span, but when I listen to Sonny Rollins, I could listen to him play a 15-minute solo and never get bored. Keith Jarrett also is another melodist, Whereas other people, when they start just playing a bunch of notes, I can just kind of get lost a little bit. So that's just what interests me. And I really worked on it. As a bass player, we don't get to play the melody very often. 95% of the time we're playing bass lines, unless maybe you're the leader of a group. But, the bass function is primarily accompaniment. And I really had to study melody. I really had to learn. Again, my teacher, Vince Maggio, he had me actually learn to sing songs, like Frank Sinatra would be how I would learn a song, and then learn how to play it on the bass without even maybe learning the changes to start with. So I try to pass that on to my students. And well, I don't know. That's just kind of what really turns me on. And I think also, when I was young, I studied classical music. I played violin, so I think the classical tradition is really infused in me as well. I grew up in East Tennessee, so folk music is there. So that all kind of comes out in my music, and more, I just really want to try to honestly reflect that, just whatever's just natural, like my expression, and that's what it is.
That's and I love the fact that we're talking about melody, because Austin, I'm sure as you were coming up and when you were learning drums, like when I was taking lessons, I mean, I had to play the melody down on the drums and then add that into actually performing. And, when you're soloing, playing around the melody, don't just start blowing chops all the time. And that's really difficult, especially on drums and being interactive within a group. So, I mean, what's your approach when you're doing something like this, and then you're also taking that original music standpoint and probably creating different feels and different textures underneath what Joe and Jamie are doing. I mean, when you approach this recording, New Songs for Old Souls, you know, how did you come in? I guess my thought as a drummer always is like, you know, everybody brought in the compositions, but I mean, how did you decide on figuring out the grooves, figuring out the feels, figuring out all of that? What's your process on that?
That's, I mean, as you can probably, if you look at the recording, you'll see that Joe Davidian composed 6 out of the how many tunes are on the record, guys?
10, I think.
10. Okay, 6 out of the 10. I brought 2 recording. Actually, I had maybe at least one more that we had been playing leading up to it that we thought we might record as well. And Jamie contributed 2. And I think maybe he also had a third that we didn't end up putting on the record. So, you know, largely Joe was contributing a larger portion of the compositions. And, you know, when we're writing, I think all 3 of us have a pretty clear vision of what we want the other guys to contribute. But at the same time, there's obviously a mutual respect and a desire to hear what the others will bring if we don't say anything. So, you know, if I bring a tune, I'll say, oh, you know, like I might just count and then read it down, see, and where it goes from. Then we might kind of tweak the tempo a little bit. And same thing, I think Joe and Jamie are doing kind of a similar thing. It's kind of, we have enough trust and confidence in one another that, you know, our instinct is probably going to be close to we'll end up doing a tune, you know. So we workshopped these tunes together on a few days we did up in the New England area prior to the recording in November, and just tried a couple of different things out. The one tune that didn't make the recording, we pretty much tried everything. It was like, let's try, Jamie and I will drop out for a chorus and Joe will play stride. And then the next version we did like, no, let's do a collective improv where we're all kind of soloing at the same time. And they were like, okay, wait, maybe on the 3rd chorus of Joe's solo, we'll do that. You know what I mean? And it got kind of ridiculous. And that was probably the reason that one didn't make it, because we were trying a little too hard. And I think we just needed a little more time with that tune for it to kind of become natural for us to work with, like the jazz standards are. And, you know, I think some of the tunes come together a little more quickly based on the way they've been written or based on the arrangement that kind of calls to us. And as far as like approaching it as a drummer or a soloist, I'm not soloing on every tune on the record. But when I do, of course, that melody is going on in the back of my mind. And sometimes I might even try to, you know, play melodies around the drums on the toms, maybe not to the degree of somebody like Ari Honig, but you know, I do use the pitches of the toms and the snare drum as a way to kind of shape melodies and direction.
Yeah. Well, you know, I actually was in school with Ari, so I watched him develop.
Oh, cool.
That. It's like, that's another level of playing the drums down with the melodies. But I mean, you know, the thing I like about what you guys are doing is the interaction portion of it. So let's talk a little bit about the compositions before we wrap this whole thing up. Now, if you've got 10 tunes on a recording and Joe wrote 6 of them, I mean, there must have been how many extra tunes, how many other, you know, over 20 years, you guys must have had a long repertoire that you decided you wanted to do. How did you decide on the repertoire that made it onto the recording? And I'll let anybody talk about that. Who wants to take that one?
I will. I mean, it all, I think the original idea of this was with Austin and I just saying one day, hey, how come nobody's writing tunes that sound like standards anymore? Let's all like hold each other to task to compose a tune or two. So this is kind of where it all started. And then I think, you know, we just, same kind of thing. We just challenged each other like, look, you know, we want to go into the studio in November and let's each contribute at least 3 tunes that are melody first. So, you know, and I think the idea was kind of just like, you know, throw them all against the wall and see which ones stick. So we recorded, I don't know, what we record, like
14.
So yeah,
Was it
14
14?
songs.
Yeah.
That the one track that you played originally to open the show was the only live track on the album. That's from the Nashville Jazz Workshop. So that one was thrown into the mix too. But yeah, we ended up with 10, but we recorded 14, so just kind of, go for broke and see which ones sound the best.
Let's talk a little bit too, because before we came on, it's coming out May 1st, and you can get all the information, thelostmelody.com. Obviously, it'll be up on all of the places that you can get downloaded music, so go purchase it, definitely. But Jamie, why don't you talk a little bit about the preview, right? There's a special digital online release party that you're having on May 4th for the obvious reasons that you can't have one in person, because nobody's having anything in person right now because of COVID-19. So why don't you talk a little bit about May 4th and where people can come and experience that digitally, because it actually opens up your audience. You don't have to just come to the venue now. It's they can watch it here in Chicago as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's actually one of these ways we can kind of turn lemons into lemonade, because it'll be the first time like all my family could attend one of our CD release parties, or people from, I have a lot of, my wife's Japanese. We have a lot of in Japan they potentially watch. So it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, May 4th. And it's part of the Miami Jazz Cooperative. So we've had for the past, 5 or more years, Monday Night Jazz every Monday night in Miami. And the website is miamijazz.org. And there's a weekly show now at 8 p.m. and they stream it on their Facebook Live. So you can look up Miami Jazz Cooperative on Facebook. And, we'll be interviewed by Wendy Peterson and Nikki Orda, and they're going to play some of our videos. We'll probably have some old photos. We'll probably interact with some people that chat. They might even surprise us. Who knows what they're going to do? They're pretty funny people. So it should be a really fun hang. So Monday, May 4th, p.m. time, Miami Jazz Cooperative. You can find it on Facebook, or I think they put it on YouTube also.
I just put it in the comments section on Facebook too. So.
Oh, great.
There it is. Perfect. Yeah. By the way, Amy, you've got a fence here in the comments, so you should check it out.
Yeah.
Apparently. Yeah, I saw this. Yeah, that's what you get when you share it.
We know.
And here's the new album too. I don't know if you already have that graphic
cool,
up there, but
it is. I don't have the graphic, so I'm glad you did that. Yes. That's
okay.
That's coming out May 1st. And before I let you guys wrap up, and I wanted to actually make sure I mention this. You guys have gone all around the world. You guys have done clinics, so I'm assuming that you book a show somewhere and you're touring, and then you're able to stop by. You're able to go to a high school, college, music center, something like that, and actually do a clinic as well. Just reading over your bio on thelostmelody.com. Talk a little bit about that too, because I think that's one of those things that when you have a group that's been together for 20 years, it lends itself to being able to have you come in, do master classes, and then have a performance that night, right? So, maybe Austin, why don't you talk a little bit about that? How did that, how does that work? Because once this whole COVID-19 thing is over with, that would be something that I think a lot of people, if they're not familiar with your group, might say, hey, you know what? I've watched these guys. I've checked it out. I've obviously seen them talk unbelievably intelligently on Chicago Music Revealed today. So I want to have them come in and do a clinic or do some sort of a master class and a performance. What does that look like when you guys come in and do something like that?
Yeah, well, actually, we were supposed to be on a tour that was going to look like that, with clinic in the day and then performances during the night, starting right around mid-March. And that is when everything kind of got frozen and locked down. So in that case, it was actually, we were invited initially. Our anchor gig, so to speak, was actually from a school that wanted to bring us in and kind of do not only clinics, but to kind of be the featured performer for their jazz concert series or whatever it is for the spring. And so, sometimes we can get an anchor gig that's a jazz festival, and other times it might be an actual university that wants to bring us in. And we're all active educators in our own areas. and that's something that I take very seriously and I enjoy immensely, and I have a great time with my students working with them and working with ensembles or teaching summer programs. So I think we just kind of bring that aspect of ourselves together, and we just share what it is that we do that's unique to our trio. Maybe not completely unique, but what's special about the three of us playing together. Like Jamie had mentioned, it's like when I'm playing with other musicians in the Boston area, even if it's a trio, there's something different that I'm not doing exactly the same that I'll do when I'm with Joe and Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
So, we try to present that and that sort of individual collectivism, if that's a thing, when we're sharing with students, what we value in music and what's important to us, and what we hope they'll take away from our performances as well. And, one thing I should mention is I remember we did one clinic actually in Miami. I can't remember. I think it was at the University of Miami, and we talked about a bunch of stuff, and then we played a little bit. And one of the faculty members came up to us afterwards, and they said, it was so great to hear you guys play after you spoke about what it is you do and what you value, because you actually did those things. Whereas a lot of times we have clinicians come into universities and they say, you got to play your time, you got to keep it steady, you got to play with dynamics, and you got to listen. And then they get up there and they play on the stage, and then they do none of those things. It's all just like shredding or whatever, or all chops. And so this faculty member really appreciated that we were true to ourselves and true to the trio approach. So that's what we like to share if we get the opportunity to do clinics and master classes.
I think it's so difficult, but it's so important that if you're an educator, and I mean, you just spoke directly to it, but if you can't, the reason why you're a good educator, the reason why you're a good teacher is because you can explain exactly why and what you're doing. And it's difficult for a lot of musicians to be, they might be burning, but I mean, all of us have been to master classes where, oh man, I want to go see this guy do a master class. He does a master class, and it's like, well, yeah, it's unbelievable. He didn't tell me any information. I can't go home and work on anything. I have no idea what just happened, but that's cool. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because I think that's one of those keys, is that you should be able to explain and describe exactly what you're doing and the purpose behind what you're doing, and to have the three of you there actually doing it and talking about it is very valuable. So I mean, that's and also it's kind of the way of the world now, right? Because if you're going to go on tour with a trio, it kind of makes a lot of sense to be able to line up a master class or line up a couple of different seminars, some sort of teaching element of it, and then you're able to play some gigs too around it. It puts the whole thing, and it also allows you to reach different audiences and connect with different potential fans. So it seems like a perfect fit, especially with guys that like being around each other and have been playing together for 20 years. So, all right, so I'm going to tell everybody thelostmelody.com, new songs for old souls, coming up May 1st and May 4th, miamijazz.org. They've got their digital online CD release, miamijazz.org, but it's going to be on Facebook, so you can get there from there. And Joe put it in the comments already, so guys, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I dig the music, and congratulations on the new recording and all the success. And I'm glad that we made this Skype happen here live on Facebook. It's a new technological feat for myself. So I'm happy that we didn't crash.
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having us.
And keep me posted, because once this whole thing clears up, let's get you guys up to Chicago hopefully sometime, and then we can experience you in person as well.
Yeah, it's showcase, baby.
That's right.
We love that.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care.
Let's see. Pull that in. I'm going to do that, and I'm back here. There I am. Nope, that's the wrong camera. And I'm back here, and now I'm there. I knew there was going to be some sort of technical snafu, but thank God it only happened at the end when I was trying to close things out. So I'll tell you what, you should definitely check out this recording. Maybe I'll close out the show with a little bit of that recording as well. thelostmelody.com. Great guys. Congratulations to them. And I encourage you to really get some more information. Hopefully everybody's enjoying this show, the Chicago Music Revealed show, because we are, trying to reveal Chicago music to the world and also the world music to Chicago. And I think we just did that, and we did that yesterday too with our guests. So we're going to keep things going. Now, tomorrow we're going to go back in. We're going to have a Chicago guest. Isaiah Spencer is going to be here. We're going to be talking about I caught him on a live stream a couple of weeks ago. It was like 1 a.m. on Facebook, and he's playing solo drums. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then he shouted me out, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, let's have him on the show. I've seen him play before. He's a killer player. It's going to be a ton of fun. And so that's going to be tomorrow at 4 p.m. So you don't want to miss that. And then we're going to have Will Phelan. He's coming on Friday. So that's at 4 p.m. And Will's interesting because he runs summer camps. He runs singer-songwriter summer camps. He's also an accomplished musician, singer-songwriter, composer, arranger. He's also got a record label. So we're going to talk all about that on Friday. And Thursday is TBA, but I've got a couple of options. So we're going to work through that, and I'm going to announce that soon. Of course, I encourage everybody, share this out. Tell everybody this is on every day at 4 p.m. But, of course, you can catch the replay anytime you want. It's available at chicagomusicrevealed.com. I want to thank Epiphany Center for the Arts, where I am the director of programming, for helping to present this show. Stay tuned because we got some exciting performances coming up there as soon as we can open up and get the ball rolling. That's over at 201 South Ashland Avenue. So epiphanyshy.com. And Chicago Jazz Magazine. We're going to be doing some announcements on the next issue, the May issue. Maybe it might be a June issue. All of this COVID-19 thing kind of screwed everything up. So we're internally figuring out strategically how we want to handle that and how we're going to do that. But it's not done yet. So we're going to keep things going. So stay tuned for that as well. But until next time, I really appreciate everybody watching, everybody tuning in. Thanks again to thelostmelody.com is where you can find the guys. New songs for old souls coming out May 1st. And I'm going to hit this theme song that Craig Pilo put together for me. We're going to roll out on this. As always, if you like what you see, please share it out. Tell the neighbors. Tell your family. Call the grandkids. Chicago Music Revealed. We will be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. with Isaiah Spencer. And until next time, hopefully everybody stays safe, stays healthy, and we'll see you at the next broadcast.